So, hello everybody. I am Belinda Morrison, aka Bella Morrison, by a few people that know me. I am the founder of CB Rescue Foundation in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and we are a nonprofit dog rescue in Alberta. And my background is personal training in the health industry for over 30 years. So, I am a human nutritionist. So for me, having healthy dogs is a big deal at my rescue. I try and educate the other families that adopt from me about nutrition and health for their dogs. And so today I'm going to be talking to Lauren Whiteman. She's a fellow dog rescuer. She's helped me rescue many dogs from actually Las Vegas. And I'm going to be talking to her today about the natural dog diet and how returning our dogs to the natural diet can prevent and reverse disease, which has actually happened in my dog. And that's why I'm so positive about this diet, because I have a dog that had cancer, and then we cured him of cancer because of this diet. So that's why I practice what I preach. And so today we have Lauren, and thank you, Lauren, for taking the time today to educate all my peeps out there of this great diet, and maybe answer some questions that I know people are wondering about the diet. So anyways, Lauren, how did how did this diet become? I mean, I talked to you many years ago about this, but I don't even really know how you found it and what your experiences were with the diet.
Well, first, thanks for having me, Belinda. It's really great to be able to have conversations about this topic and get this information out there to pet parents who love their dogs and want the best for their dogs. And that's really where my journey started. Is I for many years I was very sick myself. I was overweight. I was about 80 pounds overweight, and I had a lot of health conditions. I had IBS. I had a golf ball sized mass in my breast. I had suicidal depression. I was in chronic pain. I had chronic fatigue. And about 8 years ago, I started on a journey of getting serious about my health. And I looked around me and I realized that, everybody in my family who went to the, traditional route of medicine was not getting well. They would just progressively get worse. We had, epidemics of disease in society. And, so I was like, okay, well, this is not the answer. This isn't working for me. It's not working for anybody I can see around me. So this is not the answer. So there must be an answer out there because, I truly believe in my heart that we aren't meant to suffer. We aren't meant to be in pain. We're meant to be in a state of health, and there's something that is causing disease. So I went on this journey to start educating myself about health, and I put all these conditions into place in order to recover my own health. And I got to a point where I had so much extra energy, so much joy in my life that I was like, I need to share this. And so I started fostering dogs, and I had no idea the level of disease that was rampant in the dog industry. And so I started fostering senior dogs, and it all started with Lizzie. I called her Queen Elizabeth. She was 15 years old when I got her from the shelter, and she had mammary tumors all over her, and she was 11 pounds overweight, and her healthy weight was 9 pounds, so she was more than double her size. And she had a pyometra, and she was just an absolute mess. And she was just the first one of many. And I just, I took her in and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to use the same principles that I used to get myself healthy to get her healthy. And so I started doing research into the natural diet for dogs, put the same principles of healing into place that, I follow through the science of natural hygiene. And I started to learn about what do dogs eat in the wild? What do, they're all the canines, what are the coyotes and the wolves out there eating? And I found this group run by a lady called Nora Lenz, and she had a book called, I think, Dog Nutrition 101. She runs a group, RMF Pets. And so that's where I started my journey, and I started learning. Oh, what a cutie. And I started learning about, just what do we feed dogs that is right, and what do we feed dogs that's wrong? You know, how are they eating in nature, and you know, how are we differing from that in you know what we're doing with commercial foods?
Mhm.
And so then I had, you know, a few months later, I had a dog named Happy, and Happy came to us with a grapefruit-sized mass on her spleen, and the vet said we picked her up from the shelter, and the shelter said she's terminal, take her home, just you know, she just needs a place to die.
Mhm.
That's you know that's warm and comfortable. And we took her over to the vet, and they said basically the same thing. They said she's got, you know, a week to, you know, maybe a month. She said, you know, bring her back when, you know, things get too bad, and, you know, we'll euthanize her. And I was just not going to accept that. I was like, you know, no, like I'm not just giving up on this dog. So, you know, I really just dug in and read everything that I could find on the subject of health and natural hygiene and fasting. And, you know, I put her on a fruit diet for 60 days.
Mhm.
And not only did she surpass that week and that month, but she ended up living 2.5 years longer. She lost all the weight. She ran and jumped and played like a puppy up until her last days. And she
Mhm.
passed at 16 and a half years old. She came and laid at my feet at my desk, and she passed completely peacefully,
Wow.
like dogs are supposed to pass. You
Mhm.
know, and that grapefruit size mass gone. She had vestibular disease, gone. She had no hearing. Her hearing returned. She had cataracts on her eyes, and those went away. You know, so all of these things, you know, just kept, you know, everything, every condition of disease that she came to me with was gone. And you know, this is the power that we have if we're just educated properly. So you know, I started just taking in more and more seniors, and every single one of them would come to me with all of these conditions, and every time we would put them on the natural diet for dogs, and one by one the symptoms of their disease would just fade away. You know, we had Mr. Bean had seizures, dementia. He was blind and deaf. You know, we got him back to a state of perfect health where he actually started to bark again, and he had no more seizures, and he would, you know, do little dances for bananas.
Mhm.
So, you know, we we just continued to follow these principles and just see time and time again, you know, the same results, you know, dogs getting better, you know, and you know, we see the same results happening in the opposite direction, you know, with everybody else, where you know they're going to medicine and the dogs just keep getting worse, and it's just about symptom management and keeping them out of pain. And it, you know,
Like a
it's,
Band-Aid.
yeah, it's a
I
band.
always say it's a Band-Aid, right? And I agree with what you're saying because, well, like I said in my introduction, same thing with Lucky, right?
Hmm.
Remember when I had Lucky and
I do. I remember
I
the day
fed
you got that diagnosis.
yeah, and I fed him kibble for years, but then I fed fruit and vegetables with it, not knowing what I was doing. And anyways, yeah, he just said, "Oh, your dog has two types of cancer. Oh, one is aggressive. Forget the chemo, Belinda." And I wasn't going to do that anyways, but he agreed with me. He's like, "No chemo. Nope, you'll just make your dog more sick and he'll die sick when he could have some, maybe something, not being sick, for the rest, whatever life he has left, a little
Hmm.
bit." And that's when I called you that day and I phoned you and I said, "Okay, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Because that ain't happening." Little, and of course, I think it was 5 or 6 months later, he went for his next operation where they were going to biopsy all the spots and he had a different cancer in his ear. It's all in the report. And the doctor put him under another $5,000 to do this.
Oof.
And then the doctor calls me and says, "Well, I don't know what you guys did or what happened, but this dog has no cancer. I've biopsied every spot." And I said, "Oh, it's the RMF diet." And he goes, "Well, what's that?" And I said, "Oh, it's plant-based and this is what I did. I put him on watermelon." And he's like, "I believe it." He's like, "One in two dogs come into this vet clinic with cancer." And we now know that is an actual statistic.
Yep.
Where is that coming from? What's the difference between now and what, 30 years ago? I
Yeah.
don't even know when kibble came in. I don't know that
Yeah, I
answer,
think it
but
was roughly the 40s and 50s was when they
40s and
started.
50s.
Yeah. But it was, back then, even then,
Better.
it was, yeah, it was better quality. It
Yeah,
was like the
that's
offcuts
right.
of meat dried with
Yes,
like cracker dust and stuff like that. It was still like a waste product, but it was at least a little bit higher quality. None of the neurotoxins and colorings and preservatives that we have nowadays.
that's right. So yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from. And that's why when I saw it with my own dog, and then I started doing the dogs in the rescue, like Jax had the worst black ears, and he was a reactive dog. We couldn't touch his ears. I actually had to go to the vet, put him under, which cost me $500 to $600 every time to clean his ears out. That's what I did. And
Yeah.
then I said, oh no, we're putting Jax on this. And we did. Well, you should have seen within 3-4 months, his hair grew back, no black in his ears. There was nothing. Colin would clean out his ears, nothing, nothing. Like
Yeah.
it was incredible. He bite his paws, bite, 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 nothing. And even the runner that used to run Jack said, I can't believe what this dog looks like now. And I said, this is what I'm feeding him. And she's like, aha. So I always tell people, if somebody's telling you something, but they get something from it, be wary of it.
Hmm.
What do we have? What are we doing? We don't
Yeah.
get kickbacks. We get nothing. We're just telling you to feed the dog how they used to roam the earth.
Yeah.
But we just believe that dogs should have a healthy life, and that's why we're doing this lecture today. But anyways, keep on going. Sorry, I just had to add that in.
All right. Should we jump into a little bit about like, what's driving all this disease? And
Right.
okay, so a lot of people, feed kibble, and obviously most people know that there's, good kibble and bad kibble. There's higher quality kibbles and there's lower quality kibbles. So, you know, we have to ask ourselves, well, if there's higher quality kibble, but like, people like you and me, we fed, I know you when you fed Lucky, you fed a high quality kibble. I think you also fed like a raw food, like a commercial raw food. I know I fed dehydrated Origin brand, which is like, high quality. It's from Canada, and it's supposed to be, low heat processed and all of
Yes,
this.
I know.
Um,
I've heard it.
yeah, and my dogs, my dogs that I had for many years, still started to show symptoms of disease on the kibble. Even feeding these higher quality kibbles. So we got to ask ourselves, okay, well, what is going on? What's the issues here? Why are the dogs' bodies not responding to these in the way that that
We
keeps them in a state of health?
Mm-hmm.
We get the marketing all the time. It's like, they're scientifically formulated, they're all natural, they're balanced. And we think,
Biologically appropriate.
yeah. And all of these things are great, shiny little, logos, but that's all
Marketing.
they are. That's all they are. They're marketing. They're designed to take something that is a waste product, that is a garbage product, and package it in a way that makes profit for the people who have these waste products. So, the dog food industry was born out of the meat processing industry. So they, process the meat for the grocery store for, people to have for dinner or whatever. Um, Everything that's off cut, all the gristle and the fat and the bone and the whatever pieces that the people won't eat, that's what's getting ground up into the dog food. So you've got that. Okay, you've got like a waste product, so the dog isn't getting the whole animal, they're getting only the least desirable pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got that as like a negative tick against kibble. And then you've got, on top of that, you're mixing in waste products from the plant industry. So you've got, wheat bran and various like leftover vegetables and all sorts of stuff. And, adding vegetable matter to a dog's diet is not necessarily a bad thing. But the problem is dogs only have one stomach. A dog out in the wild is going to hunt its prey, eat its prey, and then if it's hungry in between, it's going to go to the apple tree and it's going to munch on an apple. It's going to go to the blueberry bushes and it's going to munch on a blueberry. It's not going to kill that rabbit, leave it laying there, run and collect an apple, run and pick some carrots, run and collect some blueberries, bring them all over, mix them together, and then put them all in his stomach to digest. You know, and just like, humans, we can't digest multiple things, but we do the same thing to ourselves. We cause all sorts of discomfort. We've got Pepto-Bismol and Alka-Seltzer and all sorts of OTC medications because we just put all sorts of stuff mixed together in our system, and then our system's like, well, I don't know what to do with this. Like I can, like I have a starch here and I can put in some, starch digesting enzymes, but I've also got a protein in here and I need to put in protein digesting enzymes. And guess what? Protein and starch digesting enzymes, they counteract each other. And so you end up with nothing going on, and then you just have a lump sitting in your stomach. Well, the same thing's happening to our dogs. So if you're mixing that, that plant matter with that meat, you're not digesting either one appropriately. And what happens when foods don't digest properly? So plants, they ferment. Fermentation causes gas and it creates alcohol. Alcohol is a poison. Now, when meat ferments, or meat actually putrefies, putrefaction creates ammonia and a bunch of other toxic chemicals. So if we are putting these things into our system, we're creating, if we're putting these things into our system and we're not able to digest them because we're mixing them, because we're, subduing our body's ability to digest properly because we're mixing them, then we're creating all of these byproducts, and these byproducts are known carcinogens. They're known poisons, ammonia, alcohol, both carcinogens. So, this is what's happening when we're feeding these foods that are mixed. And, it's just, when we think about it, we're just going against nature. Nature doesn't mix together proteins and starches or vegetables. We feed on one and then they feed on the other. So, that's where we're, running into that problem. And then, to add to that, you've got, non-foods going into the kibble. You've got food coloring because they want it to look like peas and carrots so that you buy it, but it's really just a burnt brown ball. We've got preservatives because they want that to be able to sit on the shelf for the next, 6 to 12 months, or to sit in a warehouse for 2 years before it gets to the shelf. And so they don't want you to open the bag and have it full of mold. So they put in all of this stuff that kills mold. Well, guess what mold is? Mold is a cell, and it's biological life. And guess what your cells are? Guess what your dog's cells are? They're biological life. So anything that kills mold also kills your own cells. It's like when we put in, an antibiotic means anti against bios, life. It's against life. It kills all life that it comes in contact with. So, we're putting these preservatives in. They're killing off the mold. They're doing their purpose, but then they're also going into the body and they're having the same effect. So we're damaging cells, and then we're ending up with, all this toxic waste from all of these damaged cells. And that's where disease comes in. So then you've got the added step in kibble where they're heating it to high heat. I think the average kibble is cooked to about 600 to 700 degrees to kill off any pathogens in the meat. So this stuff is as dead can be. It is burnt brown balls.
So what you're saying, when I hear people phone me and say, well, Belinda, I'm going to get Ancana because it's a high grade kibble instead of pedigree. So I'm doing very good by my dog. And I say, well, actually, it doesn't really matter, because when you're cooking it at that high heat, everything good is gone. It doesn't matter. So you're actually spending money for a higher grade that's not going to do anything anyways. Am I correct on that?
Absolutely. I mean, the only differences between, say, the high grade kibble and the low grade kibble is that the low grade kibble has a lot more of the neurotoxins, a lot more of the, preservatives, and a lot more of the food colorings. That's the only real difference. You're still mixing plants and meat. You're still cooking them. You're still having the offcuts and the leftover waste products, and you're still putting preservatives in there and preparing them in a way that makes them shelf stable, which means dead. So, I always like to say, dead things can't create life, when you pick
and I think you mentioned before too, I was reading it, that, of course, the kibble to a dog, actually, the dog wouldn't go near it. but then they put the oils and the
Yeah.
grease and everything on top, so you entice your dog to actually eat it, because if they didn't do that, your dog would walk away from it,
Yeah,
right?
so our dogs have like incredibly strong sense of smell, right? So that, I think hundreds of times stronger than ours. So they can smell meat, the flavors of meat
Mm-hmm.
in things that are not actually meat. So I don't know if you've ever experienced having a table that's like a pressboard table that has the glue in it. Well, that glue is made from horse or animal bones. And then your dog starts chewing on the leg, and you're like, why is my dog chewing on the leg? It's because it
uh,
smells like food to them. They smell that
uh,
animal glue in there. And that's, unfortunately, we end up with, a lot of dog, injuries and,
mm-hmm.
dogs getting sick and stuff from things like that because we have all of these products that we make with animal glues. And then the poor dog, they're just going by their sense of smell and they smell food. And then they chew up their
Right.
furniture and then we get all mad at them. Like,
Mm.
um,
I did not know this.
yeah. So,
Yeah, there you
yeah,
go.
same thing with the kibble. So, we're taking a whole bunch of, especially with the really cheap kibbles, they're taking a whole bunch of, you know,
Mm-hmm.
inappropriate materials, stuff that the dogs would never eat, like ground up soybean and
Mm-hmm.
wheat bran and stuff like that. And then in order to entice the dogs, they're just creating like a rendered fat, and they coat them in that rendered fat so that the ball smells like a food to them, and then they get tricked into eating it. And a lot of the kibbles, you see, well, why does the dog, why are some kibbles the dog won't you know eat, won't overeat on, won't end up fat, but then others, the dog becomes obese, because they're just constantly going back to it. It's like the potato chip effect. You start eating potato chips and all that, salt and fat. It's really addictive. It's really
Mm-hmm.
hard to step away from them.
Mm-hmm.
So, same thing's happening with our dogs. They just get addicted to these. It's like we're giving them drugs and they're just addicted to the drugs. And so they just keep going back to it, even though it's making them sicker and sicker.
Right.
So,
Wow. Yeah, that's and maybe you could touch on really quick here. Well, in the last few years, there's been that the grain-free diet movement in the kibble. Again, here I am, fed that to my dog before I knew what I know. Um, my Lucky actually died of a massive heart attack. He didn't die of cancer. He died in front of me at the dog park. And I know he died of a massive heart attack because the vet was there at the park we were at. There's an office, and we ran him in, and she was doing CPR on him. And she says, your dog died of a massive heart attack. I felt it go. I felt that heart doing this, and boom.
oh,
And she goes, so I don't know why, but he did die of that. And then within a day or two after the shock, because we were just taking the dogs to the park. I mean, I've never seen my husband like that. But a couple days later, I'm thinking, oh my Lord, I know why he had that heart attack. It was a grain-free kibble.
mm-hmm.
I'm positive of it.
Yeah.
And then I said it on Facebook. Well, you should have seen the people
Mm-hmm.
phoning me, messaging me. My dog died of a massive heart attack. I said, was he on grain-free kibble? Yes. I'm like,
Yeah.
so here we
Yeah.
go.
And there's a problem with the whole grain-free thing because there's two messages that are out there. Okay, so obviously we're seeing this in real time. We're seeing, dogs having all of these heart issues. But the bigger problem is we're saying, well, I shouldn't say we're saying it because, people who actually know and are
Mm-hmm.
interested in their dog's health are smarter than this, but the people that are marketing these products that are marketing the grain filled products are saying, see, your dog needs grains. Not, we're not looking at, okay, well, what's the trade-off in the grain free product, right? Because you're not feeding the natural diet, you're feeding a product that is just swapped grains for something else. So in this case, most of these grain-free diets are swapping legumes, beans and peas and things like that for the grains. Both, beans and peas and grains are very cheap ingredients. They're plentiful, they're cheap to grow, and so they're available as good filler. They're a good, cost reducer for these foods. And so the problem with this whole grain free, issue is that everybody's going around grain free. Grain free is, bad. We need to feed grains. And no, that's not the right direction to go. So yeah, we need to be staying away from grain free kibble, but we also need to be grain free because dogs, there's no dog that if you took a raw wheat grain and laid it out on the floor would be enjoying that as a
Yes.
meal. That's
Right.
not their food.
Right.
Same thing with dried peas, dried beans. Those are not, they're not foods. They're not foods that, can be eaten. They're foods for granivores. There are birds that can eat those. You can, even humans, if we eat them, we end up with health issues. Not as much as some other things. They're less impactful than other things. But if we, they're not our natural food. We cannot eat them raw without tools or weapons, and that's
Right.
that's what it comes down to. Whatever your physiology requires is something that you can eat raw without processing, without tools, without weapons, without cooking. So same thing for our dogs. What can they eat in nature without intervention from us? So grains and beans would be right off the table. They're not appropriate foods for us. Grains have lectins, which is a chemical that the plant produces in order to protect itself from being eaten. Same thing with kale. Kale has mild toxins that if we eat too much of it will actually strip calcium out of our bones. It's good when it's young because the plant doesn't produce a lot of those lectins, but then as the plant gets bigger, it produces more and more of them to protect itself so that it can reproduce and produce new plants. So, we have all of these like minor plant toxins, and a little bit is fine. The body can easily handle a little bit of these, plant-based toxins, but when you're replacing it and it's becoming the primary source of protein in a kibble, you're going well above and beyond what the body can handle. So, we have to get that message out there that yes, grain free, that is replacing it with legumes or other starches is bad, but it's not bad because it's missing the grains. It's bad because it's not appropriate food, just as much as the kibble with the grains is not appropriate food. So,
Okay.
big marketing thing that we've got going on there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we kind of covered the most of the issues with kibble. I think we should cover a little bit about raw food, why people who are feeding the barf and PMR, why those people are running into issues. We're still seeing, there obviously a huge improvement over kibble, and we see a lot of people going from kibble to barf and PMR, and their dogs improve, but then their dogs backslide, or their dogs improve, and then their dogs suddenly become allergic to different proteins, and they start getting skin allergies, or eye gunk, or itchiness, or losing hair, even developing cancer and stuff like that. And then people are like, oh my god, why? Like, I'm feeding them the natural way.
Yeah.
Why is this going wrong? And so the problem with that is that we're not feeding them naturally. As much as
Right.
PMR advertises itself as a natural dog diet, as much as BARF introduces some plant materials, they're making two critical mistakes. Now, the first is our dogs' natural foods are lean prey: birds, mice, rabbits, hares, even things like snake, anything that moves quickly, eats a lot of plant matter, and has a very, very low body fat. So if you were to catch a wild hare and look at a wild hare, and then you took a commercial hare from the grocery store and you compared the amount of fat on their bodies, it's going to be night and day. You're going to see just, instantly a huge difference in
Just
the
like
level of
chicken.
body fat.
Just
Yeah,
like chicken.
same thing with chicken. Yeah, if you raise your own chickens at home, and one of them gets attacked, and you see the interior of them, which I hope never happens if you have chickens. But yeah, I have chickens here, so it's like something
Oh
we worry
Lord.
about with foxes and stuff like that, and our
Yeah.
dogs.
Mm.
But the level of fat that a commercial animal has, because that commercial animal is being fattened for market. That it's all about dollars and cents. The
Of
farmer needs to
course.
make the most possible. The commercial, animal agriculture, giant corporation that harvests these tens of thousands of cows and chickens and all that. It's all about maximizing profit. Can we make an extra dollar here? So they're fattening them up so that they can get a better price per pound. They need more pounds, better price. So they feed like really calorie intensive foods like grains to quickly fatten the animal so that they can get it to market. So when those foods are coming to market, they are high fat. So even if you're going to the grocery store and you're getting those foods, but you're feeding that PMR, but you're not removing the skin and you're not trimming that fat off, your dog is getting way more fat than his physiology was ever designed for. Same thing with your cats. If your cats are out there hunting mice and small birds and stuff like that, almost no fat, like 2%, 3% body fat. But you're getting a chicken from the grocery store. I mean, there are times where I will clean a whole chicken, and I'll start out with a 5 pound chicken, and by the time I'm done pulling off all the meat and fat, or the skin and fat, it's 3 pounds. That's huge difference between what's happening in nature and what we're seeing in the commercially available foods.
So I'm going to stop you just for one sec, because I already know what people are thinking. They're like, tell me the abbreviations of PMR and BARF, because I already know people are like, what is she talking about? I know they're already saying it.
Good point. All right. So PMR is prey model raw, and the primary structure of it is feeding only meat.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
and we know why not to do that, which you'll probably talk about.
Yeah, we'll cover that a little bit more. We'll continue into that in a little bit.
Okay.
And then BARF is biologically appropriate raw food.
Okay.
So that's they are essentially very similar to PMR, and they grew as an offshoot of PMR, but they started to add plant foods because they saw some animals out in nature are eating plant foods, and they said, well, maybe that's what's missing.
Yes.
And so they came from the prey model raw and created this little offshoot.
Okay.
But again, we'll go over where they're making these little mistakes.
Okay.
So fat, we've got the fat, and then when we get the commercially prepared, like if you go to the pet store and you want to buy your raw food, your commercially prepared raw dog food, raw cat food, they're produced in one of these models, either the BARF, the BARF, or the PMR. And so what's happening with these commercial foods is, like, we were just saying, there's so much fat in the commercially prepared. You go to the grocery store, you buy a chicken, you're going to take the skin and fat off. You're going to be taking, a third of the weight off of it. So what's happening with these PMR foods is that they may be grinding the whole animal, but they're not removing any of that fat. So all that fat is going into the product. But what's happening in even more cases is that they're not even grinding the whole animal, because most of the carcass is going to the store shelves for human consumption. So what they are grinding is the things that are less desirable to humans. And then that's what's being processed into the raw. So they're doing the same thing that the kibble companies are doing, putting all that fat in there and all the, the gristle and leftover bone and all the stuff, but minus the meat. So now we've gone from, okay, our natural dogs out in the wild are eating maybe 2 or 3% fat. Okay, then maybe some of these commercial raw foods are grinding a whole animal, so it's between 30 and 50% fat. And then you've got the less, the less reputable, I guess you could say, raw food companies that are grinding only the scraps. And that's, you're looking at 80, 90, maybe even 100% fat and bone, with so little meat. And so, I mean, you can just imagine what kind of tax that is on the system.
Oh, yeah.
To be consuming that much fat when their system is designed for something so lean. So, that's the biggest problem that we're running into. We're seeing with the PMR and any of the kind of traditional raw food, or what's like the mainstream raw food. And then the added issue with the BARF diet, BARF diet, they're adding in plants, which is great, because our dogs are, they would naturally be eating plants out in the wild.
That's right.
But they're mixing it in. So you'll make a meal and you'll have, a chicken leg and a piece of fish and an egg and three blueberries and like a handful of cooked spinach.
Okay.
Like, first of all,
a lot of people do that.
Yeah.
And they think it's healthy, which it is theoretically.
Yeah. Well, it's a step up. You're replacing some of that.
It's way better than kibble.
Yeah, you're way better than kibble. You're even making an improvement over PMR because you're giving them the nutrition that they require, the vitamins and minerals that they require that they're not getting if you only feed them meat. But then you are forgetting that dogs, number one, cannot walk up to your stove and turn it on. They cannot cook food. So if you are cooking that food, you are going against nature. You are going against what they are capable of doing. And then also, you cannot digest two different things at a time. You can't digest a protein and a fruit or a green at the same time. And the idea stems from the prey would have something in its stomach. The prey would have eaten the berries, and then the dog eats the stomach and gets the berries from that. But the problem is, one, food, especially fruits and plants, digest very quickly. So, in most cases, that food would already be pre-digested. So it wouldn't require any digestion. So huge difference between, putting a raw berry in and putting something that's in the digestive tract of another animal. And the second issue is that they're forgetting that dogs actually eat whole meals of fruits. And, this is something that I don't know if it's something that, because humans are so caught up in this idea of requiring high protein, it's like our driving force for disease creation is this idea that we need this high protein diet. And it's where, most of our disease in the human culture stems from, is this high protein diet idea. But we're putting it onto our dogs, and we're ignoring what we can observe in nature. So, when we observe coyotes, when we observe wild dogs, and when we observe wolves in nature, we see that their fruit consumption is anywhere from 40% to 83% of their diet, depending on the season. So, like in the summer, when the berries are in peak, the wolves at Yellowstone are eating 83% blueberries.
Wow.
So, that averages out to maybe two meat days a week, and the rest fruit, right? Even in the winter, when the plant matter is on the lower end, and we have studies of like coyotes in like low productivity zones is what it's called, where they're living in areas where there's not a whole lot of plant matter. Even at that point, they're eating between 25 and 40% plants. So even in areas where there's extremely limited plant matter, they're still eating, a quarter to, a half of their diet as plants. So if we're only giving our dogs, meat every day, or we're giving them meat with like 3 blueberries and a handful of spinach, like we're just not providing them with what they would eat in nature. We're not meeting their physiological needs.
Right.
And so that's where we see the commercial raw food and the BARF and the PMR feeding methods running into these health problems, because they're not providing, they're trying to meet nature, but they're not looking to nature to actually see what is truly going into these dogs and wild, canids bodies.
And just like I just saw a lady post the other day, well, I have my dog on a purely plant-based diet, and I thought, wrong.
Yeah.
Wrong, because that's not what they're eating if they were walking the face of the earth and they were hunting. And I said, then you're not doing a service. Yes, Yes, when we start a dog that maybe has been on kibble and is sick, like my Lucky, I put him on watermelon for, whatever it was, 2 weeks straight watermelon, nothing else. And then I progressed him into the diet. Well, I was doing that for a certain reason, as you know, what I was trying to do there. But I wasn't putting him on plant for the rest of his life.
Right, exactly. And that's something that we do with dogs that come in with serious conditions. We do put them on fruits only for extended periods of time. Sometimes 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. I had, the one dog Bean had seizures, dementia, he was blind and deaf. For about 9 months he ate very little meat, but not no meat not no meat
Right.
because he still needs a little bit.
Yeah.
But his system doesn't need the burden of it. So we went for about 6 months where he got meat every 2 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
and that was what it took to get the seizures to stop.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends on the state of the body. Like I always put my younger dogs 2 to 3 meat meals a week, and
That's
then
right.
my seniors on one maybe two.
That's what I do too. Yeah.
Um, and that just comes down to level of burden. So it takes more energy for the body to digest a protein than it does to digest fruit. So fruit digests very quickly. It provides a lot of energy and it breaks down very easily. Most of the digestion occurs right in the digestive tract, so it's not utilizing any of the other digestive organs, or it's utilizing them very sparingly. So all of that energy is available for the body to clean and heal itself, because that's what disease is all about. Is basically, if you could think about it like a clean house or a dirty house. When your body's in a state of disease, you have a dirty house.
Mm-hmm.
And what does it take to get a dirty house to a clean house? It takes energy. So digestion is our largest energy drain. And if we're taking that energy and we're putting it into the digestion of something that takes a very long time to digest, then that's just less energy available. It's like you have a battery pack and you can run it down 50%, with your meat meal, or you can run it down 10% with your fruit meal and have 90% of that battery left to clean and heal and make cellular repair and, get the body back to its function, proper functionality.
And I think somebody's probably sitting here going, well, why did Belinda put Lucky on watermelon? Okay, so you kind of explained everything there, but there's also, correct me if I'm wrong, I was trying to put his blood in an alkaline state.
Yep.
Because a lot of people that feed raw every day, oh, I feed my dog raw every day, it's so great for them. I'm like, actually, no, it isn't. First of all, it's not biologically appropriate. Second of all, they're in a constant state of they're inflammatory.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because there's so much acidity in the blood.
Mm-hmm.
And inflammation and disease love inflammation.
Yep.
And I was trying to stop it. I was trying to put his blood in an alkaline state, which we now know in a human and a dog is the best thing you can do. And we can do that by fruits and we can do that by fasting, which
Yep,
of course we could hopefully get into here. Hopefully, we might have to have a part two.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Because a lot of people say to me too, oh, yeah, the fasting, like,
Yeah, that scares a lot of people.
Oh, it's scary. They're like, oh no,
Yeah.
no. And then the things that I've learned with dogs in my dog rescue, wow. Now I see they're meant to do that. I mean, they could go days hunting and not find anything. And okay, well, lo and behold, they didn't die. And their metabolism actually starts to. I had a dog in my rescue. His name's Ryder, and I saw the little amount of food that this dog ate. 60-pound dog. And I said to one of my dog trainers, I don't understand this dog. How is he keeping this nice weight and he barely eats? And he goes, well, where did he come from? I said, well, the native reservation. Well, then that's it. He says his whole body just got accustomed to the little he was eating. And,
Yeah.
and your body doesn't just start, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is making sense. But anyways.
Yeah. And also, it's about the quality of the food too. When we provide, high nutrient value foods, the body doesn't need as much because it's getting so much. And then, what's also happening is there's certain foods that that when we eat them, especially things like grains, cooked foods, these things irritate and inflame the sensitive digestive tissues inside of our digestive tract. So like, when you open up your mouth, like all that very sensitive skin inside of your mouth, that goes all the way down and through. And when we eat something that, like, say you eat a spicy pepper that burns your tongue, well, that's burning all the way through until it gets out the other end.
Right.
When you eat something that like a grain, it's got all of these sharp little edges. Well, that's going through and it's like, abrading. It's like, swallowing a scratchy sponge, and you're just, pushing that all the way through your digestive tract, and you're creating all this inflammation. Well, the body, in order to protect itself from being damaged by these grains and all of these inappropriate substances, will actually put mucus inside of the digestive tract. Same thing with, if you eat some cayenne and your nose starts running, right? Most people think, oh, well, that's it clearing my sinuses. Well, no, it's not. What's happening is your body has created a defensive mechanism. The spicy pepper is an irritant, and so your body is running thin mucus in order to protect its cells. It's coating them with like a watery mucus so that the cells don't get injured as that spicy substance moves through the body. So it does the same thing in the digestive tract. And what happens is when we chronically eat these things that irritate the digestive tract, we coat the entire digestive tract with this mucus, and it hardens, and then the nutrients have a harder time getting through. So we have to eat a whole lot more of those nutrients in order to get the same result as when the digestive tract is clean and clear of this mucus. So, one of the things that we see, and one of the reasons that we put dogs on fruit, is because a few weeks on fruit will hydrate that mucus and allow the bowel walls to release it. And then you'll start to see the mucus come out in the stool. And then after that, you'll start to see, the dog's eating less. It's, gaining weight, even though it's eating less, because it's just getting so much more out of the food.
Good. Mm-hmm. That's a good explanation, because I know what people are going to ask me that. I mean, yes. What are we talking about next? What are we talking about next?
So I think we cover enough of the why it's important what we feed. I think maybe we can move into like what we should actually be feeding.
Yes, let's do that, because I know people are wondering, how do I go about this diet, and can they start right away? That's what I hear. Well, my dog is on kibble, Belinda. What should I do? Should I slowly integrate this? That's the question I get.
Yeah. So the first thing I want to say is that it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be a lot of work, and it doesn't have to be a lot of cost. I think those are the three things that people get like freaked out about, because, kibble is very easy. It's you buy the bag, you do a scoop, you're done. Feeding naturally, it does take a little bit more thinking. It does take a little bit more preparation, but it's worth it. Like you were talking about earlier about, spending $5,000 for, this vet treatment and $500 for that vet treatment. Well, if you can avoid all of those thousands of dollars of expenses, it's worth paying, a few pennies extra, per day to get them, good food. And, it's also worth it for the, extra 5 or 10 years that you're going to have to spend with your pet.
That's right.
But, that being said, I have lived under the poverty level with 25 dogs and still managed to feed my dogs this natural way.
Really?
Yes. I made $13,000 for 2 years straight while fostering, and still managed to feed myself and my dogs this way.
Wow. Isn't that interesting? Because, I've had this conversation too. I just had it before we actually went on the video here. But, I always tell people, they're like, oh, well, we can't afford that. Maybe you can, Belinda. And I'm like, which I won't get into. But, and I was trying to explain, it's about priorities. Your choices in life equal your priorities. Your priorities equal what choices you will make. Mm-hmm. And I just posted a Facebook post about not treating your dogs as babies, which I stand by, which I'll do a post about another day. But what I meant to say was, you still want to I treat my dogs like they are my family.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just like my children. Like I didn't feed my kids McDonald's every day. Why? Well, because I would have been a horrible mother. And I don't want that for my children. I want them to grow up to be healthy and make the most out of life and have the best quality of life. Well, why wouldn't I do that for my dog?
Exactly.
So, I do hear excuses, but I'm like Dr. Phil, tell it like it is. I don't want to hear about your excuses because I think it's a bunch of BS.
Yeah.
Personally, I do. You know how I am.
Yeah. And I think,
I
anybody that knows rescuers know that, like, even if we made $100,000 a year, we would be broke because all of our money goes into the dogs because, instead of rescuing 50 dogs, we would rescue 500. It's all about priorities and
right.
you're absolutely right. And, it's also about being creative. For me, feeding on a budget means that we feed, we buy when things are on sale. We keep an eye on the sale flyers. We buy in bulk. We go to Sam's and Costco. I don't know if you have those in Canada, but
We have Costco.
I'm sure you have like
Mhm.
equivalents.
Mhm.
Um, you know, there are always ways that you can make this work based on what you can afford. So,
Yeah.
What I did when, I had lost my job, I was working for an attorney and we were working on a mass tort case, and the case shut down very unexpectedly. And we were given no notice. And so I was just out of a job. And, so I went from having a 50K a year income to having basically just doing like Instacart and DoorDash just to stay afloat. And, I managed to still feed my dogs exactly the same way. This was like the peak of me doing, having all of these dogs that, required healing. So I wasn't about to, change what I was doing. And, we just looked and planned and we said, okay, well, this is how much we can pay. And then, this is what I can pay per pound. So I know that I have, 25 dogs. I know that I have to feed, this many pounds per week. I know that I can afford this much per week. So this is the per pound rate that I can buy. Okay. And then you find the foods that meet that. So for me, it was always like $1 a pound, whatever's under $1 a pound. And you can always, always find produce for under $1 a pound. A lot of places you can find chicken for 99 cents a pound. I know here in Texas, it goes on sale for 79 cents a pound. When it does, I buy a whole bunch of the chickens. So there's always ways that we can be, finding that balance to fit what we need to do to make sure that we're getting this done. Um, Bananas are so cheap. Bananas are so cheap. In a lot of places you can get them for under 50 cents a pound. So, you don't have to be buying the expensive fruit. You don't have to be buying the expensive meat. You don't have to be buying a lot of variety. You can do a little bit of variety here and there. You don't have to do it every day.
So you don't have to do 8 fruits. Like I tell people, you can do 2 fruits.
Yeah.
You can do 1 fruit if you had to. But
I know.
2 fruits, I do 2 fruits.
Yeah. I do on most days. Most days, my dogs eat one of two things on fruit days. We eat melons or we eat bananas. And I literally take all my dogs out into the dog yard. I bring, a couple bunches of bananas out with me, and I sit on the porch and I unpeel them and I hand them out to everybody. And, they keep coming back until they're full. And, there's no bowls, there's nothing to wash. It's, easy cleanup. The peels go right into the worm farm, no
And you want brown bananas.
Yes. Yeah. You want your
Yes, very
bananas to have
important.
a good solid coating of spots. No green on them. A green banana is not ripe.
Yeah.
It is acidic. Same for
Yeah.
humans. Don't be eating
Yeah.
your green bananas.
Yeah.
Eat
That's what I
those
say.
spotty yellow ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, full coating of yellow spots for the doggies.
Yeah.
Or, and further, the ones that you don't want to eat anymore, they will love them.
Yeah,
So yeah, go
even the
for.
really brown ones, I'm like, whoa, I don't care. I'm putting them in the bowl.
Yeah,
Instead
they
of
like it.
making banana bread, I give them to the dogs.
Yeah, they love it.
So
Yeah,
if you were doing this diet, right, and you're thinking, okay, so my dog's on kibble Wednesday. Tomorrow you could start this diet, and you would start with what? Maybe a fast day, and then start with fruit.
yeah. So when I bring in a new foster that's coming from the shelter and they're eating the kibble, the first thing I do is 24 hours with no food because I want that old kibble to just move out. So
Right.
24 hours with no food. And then I usually offer the first meal I offer is usually ripe bananas. If I don't have any ripe bananas on hand, then I will go with watermelon or cantaloupe or papaya. Papaya, like I have not found a dog yet that doesn't eat papaya. They love papaya for some reason.
I haven't fed. That's the only fruit I haven't fed.
Yeah. Well, down in Texas, it's very
Yeah, well,
plentiful and cheap. It's
not
in,
here.
yeah, not in
Yeah,
Canada. So,
yeah,
you got to find the things that are,
right.
good for your locality. And that's, they'll be different in every area.
Yeah,
When I lived in Las Vegas, we didn't have much in the way of papaya. We would occasionally get them, but usually
right.
only in the winter. But like when we moved out here, they're super cheap down here. So, that's what we go for.
Okay.
But mango's another good one.
Hmm.
Any of the tropical fruits, dogs usually take to really well, even if they've been fed kibble for a while, they're not used to fruits. Um, so yeah, so the dog comes in, we put him on 24 hours with no food,
Yep.
just to let that old food move
Yeah.
out, and this way you don't end up with any diarrhea, because that's always the concern with changing
Yeah.
foods is
Yeah.
and we always run into diarrhea, and that's just
Yeah.
because you've got one new irritant going in and
Right.
pushing out the old one. um, so 24 hours lets that stuff move out, and then the fruit has clear passage to move through. And usually what I will do is the first week I will do only fruit,
Okay.
because the dog may be hesitant to eat the fruit because it's been conditioned to expect kibble every single day. So it's been conditioned to expect that meat every single day. So by feeding them the fruit every day, they learn, okay, this is my new conditioning. This is the new, way of life that we're going for here. And that's
But but hold on, not to interrupt you, but I already know I can hear the people in the background. Oh, Belinda. Oh no, my dogs don't eat fruit. They don't like fruit, Belinda. So no, that won't work.
Mhm.
So what are
Well,
you going to say to that? I already know what I'm going to say, but what are you going to say?
well, I'll start by saying I've had 125 fosters come through my house, and every single one of them has eaten fruit. So
Hmm,
not one.
weird.
Yeah. No, and there are picky dogs, and I'm not gonna say there aren't picky dogs. Like I had, Dixie gave me a little bit of trouble. But more of the problem is our human desire to overfeed, our human desire to be like, oh my God, he's gonna starve if he goes 24
Oh,
hours without
oh
food.
my Lord, oh my Lord. And oh, I know. And the fruit thing. So this is what I explained to my people. I took a dog from an apartment. There was no food in that apartment. 2 weeks. What did the dog do? Started eating the wall.
Oh.
Why? Because it's fight or flight. If you
Mm-hmm.
think that a dog is going to look at fruit, yeah, I'm not going to eat that. I'll just starve myself.
Yeah.
Wrong. They
Yeah.
will never do that. And I tell people this. I put out the fruit. Okay, that's fine. That night, I put the fruit out, and lo and behold, they mosey on over. Is
Mm-hmm.
this all I'm getting? Well, I guess I better eat this then. And I tell people, just like your kids, did you not feed them fruit and vegetables? Oh, well, they don't like it, so I'm just going to give them junk food. No,
Mm-hmm.
you didn't. So I said the same principle is with the dogs,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, it just like anything new that we experience. Like we might be like a little hesitant at first, like, oh, this smells different. I'm not sure about this. Should I don't know. Maybe I'm gonna check it out a little bit. I'm gonna hold off. I'm gonna wait. That doesn't mean they don't want to eat it. That
That's right.
doesn't mean they're not gonna eat it. That means that they're number one, not hungry yet because they've been fed really high fat kibble. So their body has tons of reserves, tons of fat on it,
Yeah.
and they're not hitting hunger.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what it also means is this is new and I'm a little unsure. So what I do is, like I said, I've had 125 fosters. I do the same thing every time they come in. Day one, ripe banana. If I don't have ripe banana, then papaya or mango or watermelon. Okay. Day two. So I put it down day one. They either eat it or they don't. They don't. About 75% of the dogs eat some of it the first day. They taste
Mm-hmm.
it. They might not finish the whole bowl, but they are, you know, curious enough to
Mm-hmm.
taste it. Um, 48 hours. So they don't eat it. I pick it up after 15, 20 minutes. I try to give them a little bit of time to
Mm-hmm.
sit with it, explore it. And the other thing I do is I always feed inside of a kennel. Number one, it creates a positive experience in the kennel for the dog so that they have positive association with kenneling. So if you ever
Mm-hmm.
need to kennel the dog,
Mm-hmm.
they're
Mm-hmm.
not afraid of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the other thing is, if you have more than one dog in the house, everybody feels secure. Nobody's getting each other's food. They don't
Mm-hmm.
feel like they have to wolf it down. They don't feel like
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be fighting
Mm-hmm.
over it or have to defend themselves. So you avoid
Mm-hmm.
a lot of behavior issues by
Mm-hmm.
just feeding the crates. And the third issue, which is like the best issue, I think, for us personally, is super easy to clean up. If you have one of those plastic bottom kennels,
Mm-hmm.
quick spritz of water and vinegar, wipe it down, nice clean surface. They're not dragging the chicken bone onto your couch or, like, like, oh,
That's happened. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've had like the dogs, three of them are eaten and one of them, gets worried that somebody's going to take their bone. So they run off to the other room and,
Mm-hmm.
like you've got to wash your couch cushions now. Like,
Yeah.
avoid these things,
Yeah.
make your life easier.
Right.
Feed them in the kennel and then, you get easy cleanup and, you've got like, for those of us that don't want chicken guts all over
Mm-hmm.
our house or
That's
whatever,
right. Right.
it's all right in there. Easy cleanup, easy peasy. But first 24 hours, most of them eat it. Second, those that are hesitant, 48 hours. I've only had one dog go beyond 48 hours without trying the fruit, and that was Dixie. And Dixie was 24 pounds when I got her. She's the Dixie and Dexter were the ones that I fostered for you and then just ended up
Yes.
adopting because
I
they couldn't fly
remember.
to Canada.
Yes.
Yeah, Dixie was 24 pounds. She was 7 pounds when she was at her healthy weight. 7 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah.
And people don't realize, of course, being a personal trainer, you have 20 pounds on a human, that's substantial. 100 pounds, well, let's not ask. But on a dog,
Yeah.
especially a small frame dog, people are like, oh, well, it's only 5 pounds overweight, only 10 pounds overweight.
That's huge.
Big dog's only 20 pounds. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It's so much pressure
Mm-hmm.
on the heart and the organs and the arteries and I mean the joints, everything. I say,
Yeah.
guys, you're actually, and just to point out really quick, but I think I've read this, and I always tell my client, my people, this is, if when someone comes into my studio and they're overweight, what's the first thing that I think? Okay, they're not doing something right. They're unhealthy, and I'm here to help them. I don't think, oh, well, they look good. They're healthy.
Yeah.
But when a dog walks in and they're a little bit overweight, oh, well, your dog looks good. Oh, he looks healthy. You see how we've been trained? And I'm like, no, 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 no. Because dogs that are on roaming the earth back in the day, they look like athletes.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing is, do yourself a favor and go look at a picture of a coyote in the wild or a picture of a wolf, like, during the summer when you can see their coats a little thinner and you can actually see their body frame. Like you can see their ribs, you can see their hip bones, you can see the muscles on their legs. They've got a clearly delineated waist. The underside goes up towards the hips. We have become accustomed to these square, blocky dogs. And a square dog is an extremely unhealthy dog. That like when I see a square dog, I want to cry. Like I feel so much pain for that dog because that square blocky dog that you've got walking around, like your aunt who's 250 pounds and it's like using a cane and a walker. Like that's not a good quality of life. That's
No,
not
it's
something
not.
that's like like we love our dogs. We don't want to love them to death by feeding them to death. We want to love them in a way that supports them and provides for them and gives them good quality of life so that they can run
right.
and play like a puppy. Because that's the thing about dogs is that I have a 17-year-old Chihuahua, Emmy. A few days ago she came out in my we have a large pond in our backyard and she walked across. She was trying to cross the stream, and she walked into the water thinking it was just like little swampy. Didn't realize that it was actually like swimming depth because we just got a ton of rain. So she started swimming, and she just took off swimming, and she swam the full length of the pond. She's 17 years old. She got out of the pond. She was wagging her tail. She was like, "Oh, that was fun." Meanwhile, I was like, "Oh like freaking out. I'm like, do I have to dive in and go catch her? You know, she's 17 years old. Is she gonna like drown? Like I'm freaking out. I'm like running alongside her, calling her, trying to get at her. And she's just ignoring me and she's just going. She's like, hey, there's a turtle over there. Let me go that way. Oh, yeah. But, this is what, when dogs are properly fed, like, I see it all the time on Facebook. People are like, oh, my so-and-so is getting, older. He's got the gray face. He's 8 years old. He's 10 years old. He's slowing down. He's, getting that old age. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be this way. They don't have to
Right.
be this way. I had, my best buddy Fritzy passed in February, and he was 17 and a half years old. And up until like 2 weeks before he passed, you would not have known he was an old man. I mean, he would run and play and jump and chase balls, and he would play with the kitten, and he, just was out there loving life and doing everything that a dog should be doing up until just the last few weeks. And then and then there started to be signs, and it was like the only thing that was like prior to the 2 weeks before he passed was weight loss. They start to in the last 6 months they start to lose a little bit of the muscle mass in the back
Muscle.
legs, and you start to see
Yeah.
that. But like they should be, a 17-year-old dog should be playing like a puppy. And if your dog's not, then address that.
Yeah, reevaluate. And I think a lot of people, and I don't want people to think, when I start talking about nutrition to my prospective pet families that want to adopt from me, I always make the comment, when you know better, you do better. And
Exactly.
I didn't know better. I
Yeah.
didn't know better when Miko was 8 weeks old and I bought her pedigree.
Yeah.
I was under the spell too. I didn't know. And here I am, a nutritionist. And then one day I looked at the back of the bag and I was like, oh my Lord. And I said, I'm not feeding that. So I went to a better kibble.
Mm-hmm.
And then I added fresh fruit and vegetables. I would make juice, pulp, and I take the pulp. I'm like, oh my God, this pulp is good for dogs. I'm going to put
Yeah.
it with the kibble.
Yeah.
Thinking I was doing good. Better. Yes, you can always do better. But, and people always say to me, you know what, Belinda? Thank you for telling me this information because I just didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like I'm a bad person or I'm a bad mother or a bad father. They just didn't know. And this is why we want to do these things so we can let people know. So,
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
so you're going to do 24 hours, you're going to do fruit. And then how do they progress? How does the diet go? Like fruit one day, vegetable one day, raw food one day, and you just keep going? Because that's what the question I'm going to get here.
Yeah. And you can make it as simple as you want, and you can make it as complicated as you want. But like, this is the basics, right? Fruit day, meat day, fast. Fruit day, meat day, fast. You want to feed more meat? Fruit day, meat day, fast. Fruit day, meat day, fast. Or you could do fruit day, meat, fast. Okay. So the reason that we fast after the fruit day is because fruit digests very quickly and meat digests very slowly. So we don't want to put something that digests really quickly in right after something really slowly, because that slow moving stuff is still, making its way through the digestive tract. And if the fruit hits it, the fruit's going to ferment inside the system and create alcohol, like we were talking about earlier. And, then you end up with diarrhea, and you end up with, gas and bloating and stuff like that. So
So I
fast.
noticed. So I noticed you didn't say anything about vegetables. So this is where I'm going to get sweet potatoes, quinoa, and what is a vegetable? Why are we putting these in? Are they just for variety? Because technically, a vegetable, like let's say quinoa and broccoli, or sweet potatoes and broccoli, that is considered like essentially a fast. Am I right? Or
Well, so the RMF diet, which was created by Nora, includes the sweet potatoes and quinoa as an alternate source of energy and protein for feeding less meat. So when Nora created the diet, she was looking for something that the people, because a lot of the people were coming from PMR where they're feeding meat 7 days a week, and the idea of not feeding the meat 7 days a week, people were like, oh my God, they're not going to get enough protein.
right.
Right. So, it basically came out of this fear of, of people wanting to feed more protein essentially. So
Okay.
quinoa is not something that a dog can make by itself.
No, well, that's
Yeah.
exactly why I brought it up.
And same thing with sweet potatoes. Like a dog can eat a raw sweet potato and they will, on occasion. Like I've given raw sweet potatoes as like raw high type chews. And especially with the big dogs, that's like something that they really enjoy. Or you can cut like little slits out of the sweet
Hmm.
potato and then stuff it with little mashed banana stuff,
Hmm.
make fun little treats for them. So they can eat the raw sweet potato. But the cooked sweet potato converts the starch into sugar, so it
Right.
makes it a sweet potato is considered when baked is considered as close to fruit
Right.
nutritionally profile as you can really get.
That's
Um,
right.
so vegetables. So well, first, like what is a vegetable, right? Because most people think of things like zucchini as a vegetable, but zucchini is actually a fruit.
Just like a cucumber.
Yeah, tomatoes, cucumbers, or melons. So that's a fruit.
Hmm.
Um, bell pepper is a fruit. So we want to stick predominantly to the fruits because those are things that can be eaten raw in their whole natural form by both humans and dogs.
Right.
No processing needed. Those are the things that they're going to be eating the most in nature. Now we can
Right.
expand the diet, try to get them a little bit more of certain nutrients. Like if we're concerned about various nutrients, we might expand the diet into some vegetables, things like kale or broccoli or cauliflower. These are true
Hmm.
vegetables.
Hmm.
And a good way to think about fruit versus vegetable is if you yourself were to eat it, would you enjoy it raw? Right. So we can eat a carrot raw, but it's kind of hard on the teeth. It's got like a little bit of a like grainy kind of texture.
Hmm.
It's got like that starchy flavor
Hmm.
that's not great. It's got like a mild bitterness.
Hmm.
Same thing with broccoli. Like if we eat a raw broccoli, it's got that little bit of mild
Yeah.
bitterness. Um, so these things are that's a good way of thinking about it. It's like would I eat this raw?
Hmm.
Does this taste good raw? If not, then lightly steaming it is okay.
Right.
But again, these things should be a smaller portion of the diet because they
Hmm.
wouldn't be naturally consumed.
That's
Um,
right.
so one of the things you can do is like if you want to put the dog on fruits because it's got a lot of disease conditions, but you're scared about the protein issue, you could do something like the quinoa instead of instead of doing 2 meat days a week, you could do one quinoa and sweet potato day instead of to but still be getting a lot of protein. Um, so personally, I don't feed either of those things. I did when I first started. I find that when transitioning dogs from kibble, a lot of dogs really love the taste of sweet potato. So
Yes.
it's something that you
It's
can use
easier.
to ease
Yeah.
them in.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something that you can utilize. It's not going to be a huge burden on their body. It's not the most ideal food, but it's not a particularly harmful food. Um,
So when you're looking at this diet, if I had to pick out of the three, you're going to tell me fruit's the most important,
yeah,
and then raw, and then
yeah,
the vegetable.
yeah. I'm going to say fruit is the most important for two reasons. One, you're giving the digestion a break, and two, you're providing hydration. And that's something that we kind of missed in talking about the kibble and the raw food, is that, you know, 90% of disease conditions are just our bodies being really dehydrated.
Right.
Acids burn cells and the cellular waste created by just daily life. Like, you run and your legs are sore because of lactic acid, right? So we have all these acids in our body and acids burn. And so when we are hydrated, we are diluting those acids so they're not burning our cells. Same thing with the dogs. So, you know,
Mm-hmm.
when they're eating the fruit, they're getting all of that hydration. When they're eating kibble, they're getting a dried out thing,
Like
yeah, that
suck.
sucks water out of the
Mm-hmm.
body. Because
Mm-hmm.
in order for the body to push that through it, the digestive tract, the body has to actually keep putting water from its own cells into the
Right.
digestive tract just to get it out. So those,
Right.
the dogs, eating the kibble, they're so chronically dehydrated. So that's like when I have a sick dog, one of the first things I want to do is go with the most watery fruits possible. So the
Watermelon.
watermelon and cucumbers
Mm-hmm.
and things like that.
That's what I did with Lucky. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, the alkaline, watermelon is really high in alkaline minerals, like you mentioned earlier, and then it's
Mm-hmm.
really high in hydration. And it's got that, the fruit hydration, which means it's going to hydrate intracellularly in a way that water cannot. Um, So yeah, so fruit first, then you've got your raw meat, and then fasting, and then if
And
you
then the
want, yeah,
vegetables.
then if you want to add the vegetables, you can certainly do that. Um, the only thing I would say is, a couple things to avoid. Um, Rice, you don't want to feed rice. Um,
Why?
rice Rice is a starch. It's like, if you've ever made homemade paste, you might know that you can make homemade glue with rice starch. Well, the same thing that happens outside the body happens inside the body. So when you ingest rice, you are gluing up the intestines. And what happens is, dogs, especially certain breeds, are very susceptible to bloat, which is a
Yes.
deadly disease.
Yes.
And so what happens is, if you put something like rice or corn into the system that can create this glue, and then you put something else in that can ferment and create gas, you can cause bloating. So that's really dangerous. We don't want to be doing that.
So no rice, no corn.
No rice, no corn. Uh, Broccoli, you want to be careful with also, because broccoli can create a lot of gas.
Yes.
And so, if your dog is susceptible to bloat, if it's one of those breeds that's susceptible to bloat, I would steer clear of the broccoli personally. If your dog's not, in one of those
Steam it.
susceptible breeds, make sure it's well steamed,
Mhm.
and again, just not a whole lot of it, and make sure that you're not putting it in where it could run into something slow, that's just slower digesting. So, don't put it too close to a fruit meal, or I mean, I'm sorry, a meat meal that's going to be
Meat meal.
moving
Yeah.
slowly.
Okay. Okay. That's good. So that, and if there are any fruits that you should never feed a dog?
I wouldn't say there's any no fruits. You want to avoid onion. You want to avoid garlic.
Yes.
Those are both
What about
toxic.
mushrooms?
Uh, Mushrooms, there's a lot of toxic mushrooms. Most of the mushrooms you find in the grocery store are safe, but like most dogs wouldn't really eat them. Like if you put a raw mushroom in, the dog would
Yeah, they
kind of
won't
nose
eat
around
it.
it.
Yeah.
Um, Avocado, you want to be careful with. You don't want to feed them too much avocado. Um, the only other thing is, you do sometimes want to, watch out for the pits and seeds. Like, my
Cherries.
dogs, yeah, like my dogs eat the whole cherry, no problem. I've never had them choke on a cherry seed,
Okay.
avocado pits, um, date pits, and all of that. But my dogs are little and they chew everything. So
Mhm.
they're not swallowing something bigger than what they could chew. But there's a
Right.
lot of, especially like the medium and bigger breed dogs, that will just be like down the houch,
That's
and
right.
they'll take like the whole mango pit right down without chewing at all, or the avocado pit. And then, that could potentially end up in an obstruction. Most cases, the dog's going to throw it up. But you don't want to run that risk. You don't want to,
Right.
so if you have a dog that's a gulper, that's a quick eater, definitely just be, mindful of the pits and seeds
Yes.
and things like that. There's no issues with eating apple seeds or anything like that. I know a lot of people get worried about, like, oh, the arsenic in apple seeds. Well, you would need to first grind the apple seed to release the arsenic, and you would need hundreds of seeds for it to be a
Right.
suitable amount to create any sort of damage. The seeds are meant to just pass through the digestive system and then be deposited in the stool in order to grow another plant. It's a perfect fertilizing
Right.
medium for the plant to grow in. So,
So fruits are good. I even do pineapple with my dogs too. They love the pineapple. So I do
yeah.
pineapple too. So fruits good. Fruits the most important. Then we do the raw fasting, the vegetables. So raw food. This is what I get. Oh, Belinda, I can't feed raw chicken with the bones. No, they're going to choke on it. And I'm very nervous of that.
And
So,
yeah, I mean, that's something I've run into that a lot. And to be perfectly honest, when I first started feeding raw chicken, I was terrified, and I literally watched my dogs like hawk. I was so I remember the first day I had this little foster, Susie, who was, she, unfortunately, when we got her, she had already entered the dying process. And so she, we ended up having her only 91 days before she passed away. But she, came to us with a ton of health conditions. She had stomatitis, which is extremely rare in dogs. You see it more in cats, but it's extremely rare in dogs. And she had just green pus just coming out of her mouth nonstop. Her entire mouth was inflamed. She couldn't chew anything. And within 30 days, we got all that corrected. But sort of towards the end of the 30 days, I said, okay, well, got to get her on some meat. And so the first thing I offered her was a chicken neck. And I was like, okay, she's good. She's just this little tiny, she was only like 7 pounds. So she had a tiny little head. And I was like, okay, she's going to chew it and sit there and gnaw away at
Mhm.
it. No, she was just like alligator, just down the hatch and it was gone. And I was like, what just happened here? I was
Oh my
terrified.
goodness.
Um, but she was perfectly fine. I sat
Yeah.
there and I watched her for like 2 hours
Yeah.
straight to make sure she was fine, but she was
Right.
absolutely fine. And eventually I got to the point where I realized like I was being really silly. This is what they're naturally designed to eat. They know how to
And their
eat.
teeth and their teeth
Yeah.
and their acidity in their stomach. What, they're 10 times more acidic. They have the acidity in their stomach 10 times
Yeah.
more than a human.
Yeah, they have hydrochloric acid in their stomach to digest the protein. And dogs, they're like we have a jaw that goes side to side that's meant to grind food. So when we take in food, we chew it until it's liquid and then we swallow it because our digestion starts in our mouth. Dogs, that's not the case. Dogs only have a jaw that goes up and down. It's hinged for the maximum pressure to break bones. And so when they eat, their only goal with chewing is to break it small enough that they can get it down their gullet.
Oh,
That
so when they gulp, that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely, because
Because
that's what.
people are like, oh my gosh, look what happened.
Yeah, yeah, and I've had is it my little Chihuahua Brownie? He's all of 9 pounds, and he had a 14-ounce drumstick, which I don't know if that like equates in people's minds, but it was about like this big. I mean, and his his abdomen is only like about this big, and he just saw that bone. Like it was actually one of the other dogs was eating, and I had the crates side by side. I let the one dog out because she was done, and then I kind of forgot that I had to pick it up, and so I opened up his crate and he just dove from the one crate to the other, and like before I could even turn around, he just opens up and just swallows like an alligator, a whole drumstick. It's like longer than his stomach. I'm like, where did you put that? He didn't chew it once. He did not bite it once. Just chomp, just right down the hatch. So yeah, they're your dogs are gonna test you. They're gonna make you a little nervous, but just always keep in your mind like this is what they're designed to eat. This is how they eat in nature. If you weren't there in nature, there's nobody out in nature grinding up food for them. There's nobody
Right.
out in nature chopping it up or putting it into
Yeah.
little pieces.
I know. I tell my husband that too, because we've got little Beans, who I just showed you here, but she's only like 3 pounds. And
Aw.
he's like, oh, I have to cut everything. Oh, my husband is so good. You should see the meals he does. I have to make sure. And I'm like, Colin, she's a dog. I know, but she's so little.
Mm.
Right. So for the chicken, I always tell people, because that's the question I get. Well, what raw meat can I do? So I say chicken, take off the skin, take off the fat. Cornish game hens, same, because they're smaller, so they will have less toxins, right? Am I correct?
Yeah, they're younger, so they're not developing as many toxins. They're not fed as much food over their lifespan. So that's definitely a big thing. And then also they have smaller bones. So if you've got the smaller dogs, it's a little
Right.
easier for them to break those down than say the larger chicken bones.
And fish, smaller fish is better because they same kind of
Yeah, same
principle.
same thing. As the larger the animal, the more toxins accumulate.
Mhm.
So, the smaller fish are going to have less mercury and things like
Mhm.
that in their system. And also, a lot of the smaller fish are wild caught instead of factory farmed. If you've ever
And
looked
we
into
don't want that.
factory, yeah, if you've ever looked into factory farming fish, you know that it's not something that you want to
Yeah,
be
I
feeding to
don't do it for
anybody.
us
If
or
you
dogs.
haven't, I recommend looking into it
Mhm.
because it is something that you should know about. But yeah, very, very toxic. They're swimming in these very small tanks, very crowded, just swimming in their own waste all the time, and fed a
Yeah,
lot of. And then there's a lot of chemicals put into the water in order to
right.
combat the fact that they're overcrowded. So yeah, whatever. If you're gonna go fish, just look for those. I like to look for things under 6 or 7 inches long. That's my just general rule. It's not like a hard and fast
Yeah,
rule, but I love things like smelt and sardines are really good. Scad, Indian mackerel, um, any of those smaller fish. The Asian markets, if you have an Asian grocery near you, they'll usually have good whole fish. The only thing with fish is that you do want to be buying the whole fish, not the fillets, because the fillets are missing all the bones.
right.
Our dogs need those bones. That's the alkaline element in the protein that um, gets them to that allows their physiology to actually process meat.
So you need the bones, the organs are good. So
yeah,
like we do beef heart, chicken liver, beef liver, because that's the question I get. Well, I don't understand what kind of meat to give Belinda. I have to go to the pet store and get the raw already done. And I say, well, yeah, that's okay to use if you have to sometimes, but we don't know how much fat's in there, right? That's the
yeah,
main thing,
ton of fat in
right?
there, ton of fat in there.
So
So
we
yeah,
just don't know.
yeah, and like if you do, like say you're going on vacation and your dog sitter isn't gonna, prepare the
And I
chicken
hear
for you,
this. Yeah,
if you need to go to the grocery store and get the raw food, frozen patties, just for
yeah,
like a couple days, fine. But you want to do two things. You want to give them some extra fasting days to account for that extra fat, so the body can process that and get it out of the system, and some extra plant days.
yeah,
So,
okay.
just, to balance that out. But, definitely long term, we don't want to be feeding that because, you're feeding way too much fat. Even if you were only feeding meat once a week, that's still so much fat. And
Right.
it's so easy. We don't have to overcomplicate it. Like we don't have to get a lot of different meats. Like if it's hard for you to source, all these different things, like every grocery store in the country has chicken. You can go into any grocery store anywhere in the world and find chicken. That's all you need. You can buy a whole chicken, break it into pieces, and then,
Take
feed
the skin
according to your
off. Yeah,
dog's weight. So, take off the skin and
yeah,
we take off the fat. And,
yeah. That's it.
it doesn't have to take a long time. You don't have to get off every single morsel of fat, but you just, you want to get off the big chunks and the stuff that's sitting on the top of the thigh, and wherever you see big visible chunks, just take a scissor, trim it right off. It's like I can do break down a whole chicken in about a minute and a half. So it doesn't have to take long. You can get multiple meals, and for smaller dogs especially, you can get, like I feed, um, a whole chicken makes 4 or 5 meals for my dogs. Um, so you don't have to, it doesn't have to be a lot of work. And if you're squeamish about getting the whole chicken and cutting down the whole chicken, one of the things that you can do is, obviously grocery stores sell just the thigh or
Or the
the leg
legs. Yeah,
quarters, or
right.
the breast with bone.
Yeah,
um, the one thing that we have to, I have to stress that, like, you cannot feed a dog no bones.
that's right. Yeah, it
You
has to be bones.
you can kill a dog if you feed them meat without bone. So, like, let's just make sure that we understand this. You can kill a dog if you feed a dog meat with no bone. You
Why?
have to you have to feed the bone because protein is acidic and the bone is alkaline. So, our blood needs to stay in that slightly alkaline state. Well, our dogs does too. They need that alkaline to replenish the minerals that it takes to keep the acids from the meat from turning the body acidic. So you've got to get that bone in there to keep it balanced. And every dog in the wild, they eat all parts of the animal. They eat the
That's right.
fur, they eat the feet, they eat the
Organs.
skull, the
Hmm.
eyes, the organs, the bones,
Hmm.
all of it. So there's a reason why they eat all of it, and it's
Hmm.
because those alkaline elements are what balances the protein in the flesh. And it's the same reason why humans get sick if we eat too much meat, because we're consuming the acids, but because we're not physiologically designed to eat meat, um, we're not eating the bone, right? So
Right.
every species in the wild that eats meat eats the bones, and that's
Right.
what keeps them from getting sick. But humans, we don't eat the bone, and so we get sick.
Hmm.
Same thing. But yeah,
Right.
so definitely, making sure that you're getting those bones, but doesn't need to be complicated. I feed, again, I I want to stress this because I know that people get overwhelmed. You don't have to feed a variety of meats either. If you
Right.
go once a year and you get them some fish, fine. If your day to day is just chicken, that's okay.
Hmm.
It's totally okay.
Hmm.
My dogs get bananas, watermelon, papaya, and chicken for about 90% of the food that they eat.
Well, there you go. So that's good for people to know, because I think that does overwhelm people. Should I put like 8 different fruits in there? And I'm like, no, you don't need to. Like I do a lot of mangoes because I get the big frozen bags, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I get them, and I get bananas. That's what my dogs lots they get. Then we, of course, when the watermelons are good, when they come into summer here, then I'll get all that. But but some of the dogs love the blueberries and the strawberries, and I do probably go over a little bit, but I tell people you don't have to.
Right.
I mean, you don't have to, and I think that's what it is. They just, oh my God, there's just so much food. Like, where am I going to go? But that's good that people know that. Okay, I think you said five foods there. I think you
Yep.
said.
Yep. Yeah, and the other thing to keep in mind is you can use frozen. Like if it makes it easier for you,
Yeah, well,
you've got to work during the
especially in
week.
Canada.
Yep. Frozen fruit oftentimes is picked ripe.
Yeah,
Sorry, my throat's getting a little dry
it's
here.
okay.
Yeah, if fruits that are frozen are actually picked ripe most of the time. So, want to make sure, if we want to get the ripest fruit for our dogs, defrosting a bag of frozen berries or whatever is least expensive at the grocery store, can save you time and give you a good a good food source that's
So we don't want to use canned fruit, canned vegetables.
Right. We want to avoid canned because, especially with the canned vegetables, they have salt
Sodium.
added.
Yeah.
And then, with the canned fruits, a lot of times they have preservatives, and a lot of times they have sugars, syrups and stuff like that.
So fresh. So think about from the ground up. Really, how close it is to the ground. That's how I look at things. How close the food is to the ground, and if it is, then I'm probably going to use it. If that makes sense. That's what I do. And it's not processed.
Yeah, how little processing,
Right.
how close to nature is it? How
Right.
is it a whole food in its whole form?
Right.
That's where you want to strive for. Yeah, and the other thing, dogs out in nature don't have anybody cutting up the fruit for them, so
like my husband.
Yeah. And that's, I think something we should quickly touch on is the only time I've ever had a dog choke on meat was when I cut up the meat. And the reason for that is because, like I was saying before, dogs only chew enough to fit something down their gullet.
Mm-hmm.
So if you give them a piece that's close to the size of their throat, they're going to try to just swallow it. Right. So, my little girl Molly, she, I had bought from Costco a tray of beef stew cubes, and I thought they were like large enough that she would just try to chew on it, but no, she tried to swallow it, and it was just a little bit too hard, and I had to scoop it out of her throat a little bit, but and the one thing you can lift their back legs up to help them expel if they're trying to cough it up.
Right.
But ideally leave it in as big of a piece as possible, because then they have to gnaw and chew on it and break it down themselves, and then you're not running the risk of getting something too small that they can swallow. And same thing with like the bigger dogs, like a small dog, you can give them chicken wings and they're gonna gnaw on it, but a big dog might try to swallow a chicken wing whole. So just think use your brain, think about what your dog's size is, and plan accordingly so that
bigger bones, bigger pieces for bigger dogs, smaller for smaller.
Yeah, but like a good rule of thumb is that you don't want to give them a piece any smaller than their head.
Okay.
And that's, some dogs, obviously, if you got like one of those Staffordshire Terriers with the big blocky head, you don't have to give them an entire chicken.
Yeah.
But, like a leg quarter, just something that, just looking at it saying, can my dog swallow this in one bite? Let me go bigger. It's a good just guideline for that.
Okay. And what about beef heart? So beef heart doesn't have bone in it. Chicken liver, beef liver. When should we feed those kind of organy meats?
So you just need to have some bone with the meat. Okay. So if you a lot of times what I do is I will buy the chicken wings and a beef heart. And so I'll throw a chicken. Yeah. So I'll take a chunk of the beef heart and I'll throw a chicken wing with it. And then you've got a little bit of bone in there. You don't have to have a ton. Or a lot of times what I do is when I get the chicken hearts, I'll do like a leg quarter and then 3 or 4 hearts. Chicken hearts are small.
Right.
So
I see.
Just that's how you mix it in. Yeah.
Okay, that's how you do it. Because people, they're going to say that. Well, beef heart doesn't have any bone in it. So
Yeah.
you can mix different raw meats together. That's okay.
Yep.
So there you go. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and all the proteins digest with the same digestive enzymes pretty much. So you're not going to run into issues with mixing different proteins. So if you want to
Okay.
put some fish with some chicken, or you got some pork and some chicken, the other thing, like a lot of times people will want to feed pork, but like if you have a smaller dog, they might not be able to handle the pork bones. So you want to go with you just throw a chicken bone in there to go with the pork. Chicken wings are great for that. Um, or throwing like mixing a drumstick with a pork chop or something like that. But even with that, like my little 7 pound, I have a 7 pound miniature schnauzer and two 7 pound chihuahuas, and they can handle the pork chop bones. The one thing that you want to avoid is weight bearing bones that have been cut by a saw. So sometimes you'll see in the pet stores they'll have like marrow bones or things like that. Anything that's been artificially cut that is a weight bearing bone that your dog can't, like your dog wouldn't be able to just break down if they caught that animal in nature. That could potentially be a choking hazard, things like that. So you want to watch out for those. Stick with the smaller animals, the smaller prey animals that would be more natural to your dog taking down. So, it's okay to go with like the beef heart, but you don't want to like necessarily give them a beef leg because, that's not something like, it's not something that they're going to be able to digest. So, but like beef ribs, it's not a weight bearing bone, so it's a much thinner bone, easier
Yeah.
to digest.
Okay.
Pork bones.
And you could do pork chops. I've never done that.
Yeah, I do pork chops when I see them on sale.
Didn't even clue into that.
Yeah, my dogs usually they finish about like 50% of the bone. There's usually always some little piece left over that they can't quite. But like
Okay.
I said, my guys are all little.
So what if somebody says to me, okay, Belinda, this is all hunky. I can do the fruit. I can do the odd vegetable day once a week or whatever. But I don't know about this raw food. So maybe I can do the raw food from the commercial pet store. What would you say to that? I know you're saying that's not great.
Yeah.
But if they're going to go, if
If you
that's what they choose to do, what do you think?
So the first thing I would say is look for this. If you have to go that route, look for the simplest options available. Like there's places that you can order from online that sell like natural prey, like beaver and um, like small like rodents and things like that ground up where it's naturally lean prey. If you have to go with like a pre-ground that you just find at the regular grocery store, regular pet store, you want to avoid the commercial animals that are going to be a lot higher in fat naturally, like duck is a huge amount of fat.
That's
a lot
right.
of a lot of these companies sell duck as a meal. You want to steer away from that one. If you see rabbit is naturally much leaner, so lean towards that. Chicken, turkey, both generally leaner, so you're going to want to steer towards those, and then you're going to want to read the ingredients, the least number of ingredients possible. You don't want any fruits or vegetables mixed in, and you want to avoid the preservatives and all of that. And you want to make sure that you're balancing the excess fat that you're putting in with more fruit days. So, like if your dog would normally be getting, it's a younger dog, you're getting 3 meat meals a week. I would go down to 1 meat meal a week and do fruit the rest of the week, just to help the body balance out and clear out that extra fat. The thing is, it's scary at first, but I think anybody is capable of doing this. But if you're not ready, like you want to start today, but you're not ready to, figure out how to cut up a chicken or, figure out the protein part of it, go for the raw food that you find at the store, get them on the fruits, and then,
Right.
just work your confidence
And
up
then
to it.
and then just progress.
Yeah.
Even me, and I've been doing this for, I don't know how many years I've been doing this, 4 years,
Yeah.
5,
Well,
around there. I don't know, but I just learned something new today with you about the pork chops. But that's what I do, but I always tell people, if you're going to do that, it's better than the kibble. And just when you know better, you do better. And when you get more confident and you're, I can do this, I'm going to try this.
Yeah.
And then you
And
do it.
I'll just say too, like a lot of people, who are health conscious are, vegetarian, vegan, or just, they don't prepare their meat at home.
Yes, I know.
And, so, that's like a big thing that I see as an objection all the time. So I just want to say, I've been vegetarian since I was age 11. I never handled meat in my entire life. I went vegan at age 30. I went raw food fruitarian at, a few years later than that later. Um, you know, when I first started this diet and first, decided that I was going to feed my dogs raw food, I walked into the grocery store meat department and I literally had no clue what I was looking at. I had to go over and get an employee to like help me find the chicken. And like I was completely terrified and clueless. I didn't know, what to look at. And I made it through. I got through it. I prepare, I was, when I had the peak and I had 25 dogs, I was preparing 80 pounds of chicken every week, basically, every Saturday. So, wherever you're at now, it's okay to be nervous and scared or, feel uncomfortable with it. But, just know that you can do it. Like, all of us were there. All of us, all of us thought we were doing the best thing. And then we learned better and, we just kept improving. And, we're going to continue improving and learning new things. And, the more that we all are doing this and, we're going to learn more, we're going to see more healing. We're going to, continue to help dogs in a way that's really, powerful. And, so don't hold yourself back just because you feel like you can't do it.
Right.
We were all there. We all had that fear. And
yeah, so did I. I had the same thing. And I was, I think out of all this, the scariest thing for me was the fasting.
Yeah.
For me. And everybody tells me that. So really quick, because I know we're out of time just about here. So fasting, when to fast, how long can I fast, benefits of fasting.
Okay, so remember earlier we were talking about energy, right? So we have a set amount of energy available to us. We can either be utilizing that energy towards digestion, or the body can utilize that energy for cleaning and repair. So every time the digestive system turns on, that energy is running, down the drain essentially until that digestion stops. So, if we feed a protein, the digestion, running 12 to 18 hours. If we feed a fruit, digestion running anywhere from 2 to 3 hours to maybe, 6 to 8 hours if you're feeding like sweet potatoes or quinoa. So every hour that we're not digesting is an extra hour that the body is able to clean and repair. So if you're coming from a state where the body's already in disease conditions, we want to maximize that time and that digestive rest. So that's why it's so important, especially when we're dealing with dogs that need to heal. Getting that extra time for the body to clean and repair itself is so important. Talking about fasting lengths, like you can fast, like every one of us fasts. If you think about the word breakfast, it means break your fast. So every one of us fasts. We fast from dinner until breakfast. A lot of people are familiar these days with intermittent fasting, where you move your breakfast back 4 hours and you move your dinner up 2 hours. And then, instead of, fasting from, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., you're fasting from, 5 p.m. until 11 a.m. or something like that. And you're eating in a smaller window. There's huge benefits to that. We are accustomed to eat 3 meals a day because we're putting so much stuff in that's not natural to our bodies. So we have like negative responses when we don't put food in. So like a lot of people think about hunger pains, and they get the hunger pain, they get up in the morning and their stomach's growling and they're, got discomfort in their stomach, and then they eat and that stops. Well, that pain is not hunger. Hunger is actually like a very positive feeling. It's something that you feel in the back of your throat. Most humans, because we are, just programmed, like socially conditioned to to eat 3 meals a day, we never actually get to a place where we're hungry. We've got a grocery store where we have food available to us all the time, and we're eating things that are, oftentimes way more calorie dense than we need, and we're eating more than we need. So we never get to a place where we're feeling hungry. So when we have these feelings, we've been taught to associate them with hunger when they're really not. They're actually the body trying to heal itself. So like when we have like stomach churning, that's actually the body like shedding all the damaged stomach cells and trying to, clean it up. When we get that headache, that's the toxins. The body's starting to flush those toxins out because it's had a little bit of time overnight to clear out, and it's flushing those toxins into the bloodstream for them to be carried out down to the kidneys to be flushed out of the body. So, we have these very kind of negative connotations around skipping meals because we feel so terrible when we skip meals. But if we start to clean up our diet and we start to like move towards eating more raw fruits and vegetables, we'll notice that we don't get those pains anymore. Like we no longer get, that stomach pain or that growling or that, discomfort. And we can easily push our, meals back without any discomfort. So, one of the things I think that, I like to recommend to people is implement fasting yourself. The benefits to your body and to your, health conditions is going to be immeasurable, and you'll get to feel that, hey, it's not the end of the world. Yeah, I have a little bit of a headache. Yeah, my stomach hurts and I'm really craving those potato chips, but I'm okay, and the more you do it, the cleaner your body gets, and then the less of those negative feelings that you end up experiencing. So that's, I think, the biggest way we can get over that fear of fasting is to actually just jump in and do it ourselves. But the most important part about fasting is that it's just, the body needs that extra time to clean up. So, there's a huge difference between starvation and fasting.
That's right.
A lot of people think, oh, you're fasting your dog, they're going to starve to death.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I hear.
So, one of the things
that's abuse.
Yeah. So like in, some of my worst cases, like, I was telling you about Happy healing the grapefruit sized tumor. We fasted her for 11 days. Susie, who had, she had the stomatitis, she fasted for 10 days.
And they didn't die.
Not only did they not die, they healed from cancer and stomatitis. Their body, the amount of relief that week and a half of not eating provided was equivalent to years of healing if you didn't fast. The body is able to clean so much so rapidly with that extra energy from just a few days of shutting down the digestive tract.
And the studies are showing that in humans also.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've just got study after study now.
Study after study. I mean, it might have been wonky years ago. I mean, not that it wasn't, but in people's thinking it was. But now there's so much scientific research that reinforces what we're just saying here. So, if they want to go look themselves, they can. But it is scary, but it's for the dog's benefit.
Yeah, and keep in mind, like, we've had, for as long as humans have existed, we've had religious fasts. We fast for 40 days. As Christians, we fast for 40 days. The Muslims fast for Ramadan. Millions of people are out there fasting for extended periods of time. And, and they're all alive. They're all alive. The benefits of fasting are just tremendous. And the miracles that I've seen happen with dogs, I feel so sad when people are like afraid of fasting, because I'm like, you're robbing yourself of so much joy and relief from pain, and, so many health benefits. We tend to, in our society, have like this conditioning where it's instant gratification. Like everything that we're doing these days is feeding that kind of instant gratification. And so we want to, like, we get a headache, we want to take a pain pill to stop that headache immediately, not thinking about, well, why is the body creating that headache? What happens if I let that headache go its natural course, and the body is able to actually clean out those toxins? What if instead of stopping the body from cleaning out those toxins, I let that, that detox symptom, pass? Or, we have colds and flus. Colds and flus are the body cleaning itself. They're the body expelling mucus and expelling waste. And, we're so conditioned to run to, the OTC cold medication to stop that. Well, all you're doing is trapping that waste inside. And so what happens when we keep stopping those colds and flus? Well, eventually people stop getting colds and flus and they end up with cancer. So this is what, when we're working against the body, when we're constantly looking for that instant gratification to dull the pain, to stop the pain, we're missing, we're missing an important piece of the puzzle.
That's right.
We've been taught to stop the pain, but not realize why the pain was created.
That's just a symptom.
What that message is from the body, because pain is your body speaking to you. Pain is your
100%.
Pain is your body saying, hey, things are not right. We need to
what's going on? What are you doing to me? Are you listening to me?
Yeah, exactly.
And I know I get it, but we could have a whole conversation about that one day, which we will, for my personal training clients and my health clients. But this is just good. I think this is really good to get everybody started. I hope that people listen to this and then they can get a good foundation and basis on how to start, because that's what I think it is. It's what it is. How do we start? I think we covered mostly everything that I can think of here, at least, because I know we went way over, but
yeah,
hopefully people will still listen to us.
Yeah, it's just so easy to just keep talking about this, because it's so important, and it's so precious that the dogs are they're so precious, and they give us so much.
Voice, and they don't have a voice, and what you put in front of them dictates everything.
Yeah, like they want to please you. So if you give them something, they want to eat it because they want to please you. So,
that's right.
Use that, and have that motivate you to want to provide the best for them, because that's right. The love that they're giving to you. Like they love you so unconditionally. Like just love them back by giving them, the freedom of being in a state of health for their entire
That's right.
existence.
And I'm thinking under this video, if you could, because we didn't touch on that, which we won't have time to, but you could put maybe the dog's weight and how to put, how much vegetable, how much fruit, how much raw food underneath this video. And then they can look at it and say, okay, now I know what I'm feeding. How much am I feeding? Oh, I see it here under the video and I can calculate. And I think that would help people.
Yeah, I would be happy to do that. I can put together maybe a little PDF too with some of the fruits that they can eat, the meats that they can eat, and some basic feeding schedules, things like that. I can get that all together in the next day or two and get that over so that we can have that for people, and
that would be great, because then they can have the whole thing and figure it out. So, but I think that's good. I think that's I know that we were going to go over, but I mean, we talked about a lot of information here, which I think is good. And I think when people hear it from our voice, it's a little bit more, it's closer to their heart, I think. So, So anyways, thank you for your time today. And if you could just do all that, and then we could put it all together. And I think everybody will at least start trying to feed the dogs this way.
Yeah, and I think if anybody has any questions, if they want to post them underneath in the comments, and then we can do another video in a couple weeks, and kind of maybe cover some of the questions that come up as people.
That's right. And we could maybe even do a live Zoom with everybody, and they could talk, and we'll do all that. But yeah, I'm really interested in this, especially over since Lucky. And seeing all even I've, I won't get into it, but I just have seen with my own eyes. Mm-hmm. That's all I need to know. I don't need your story. I mean, that's great. That's why I started it. But then I saw it with my own eyes. Yes. And I've heard from so many families that feed this way from my rescue. They're like, Belinda, I wouldn't feed them any other way. Because I've seen it myself. I've even seen their teeth.
Yeah. Yeah. The amazing thing is when you see a dog come to you that's a senior dog, and they've got super thick plaque on their teeth. Yes. And then, a couple months down the line, they have these shiny white curly teeth with no plaque.
I've heard the families tell me, they're like, because I brought some dogs from Vegas, and they're small, and you know what that means. Their teeth are horrible because of the kibble and blah blah blah.
Yep.
Anyways, and then they tell me their teeth have improved, Belinda. I'm like, yeah, I just talked to a lady about that today. She says, do I need to brush my dog's teeth? And I said, no, he's 7 months. You feed him on the RMF. You give him some raw bones to chew on, included with everything. He's going to be great. You don't need to brush his teeth.
Yep, exactly.
You don't need to. Oh,
Exactly.
okay. But they've been taught, and
Yeah.
of course we never hit on the kibble in terms of, kibbles. Yeah, we know not kibble's great, but we know that there's a direct link between kibble and cancer
Hmm.
and over vaccinating and cancer, which
Hmm.
that's a whole thing. But
Yeah.
people,
There's a lot of different things that we
I
could
know
keep
there's
going
so many
on and
things we
on.
can do, but there be, oh yeah, Belinda does talk about that a lot, the correlation between those two.
Yeah.
So just throw kibble out, start doing better, and then just continue on.